Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 42 of the Clutch Dump. And this episode, we are covering World Endurance Prologue at Sebring. We got motorcycles going around Daytona. We had next-gen V8 Supercars running around the Newcastle circuit. And we had NASCAR at Phoenix. We had NHRA at the Gator Nationals. That and a lot more coming on this episode of the Clutch Dump.
20 years of trying, 20 years.
And Senna sprints away.
Down the straight, Rossi's right in behind Lorenzo.
The 101st Indianapolis 500 is won by Takuma Sato. Dale Earnhardt will come to the caution flag to win the Daytona 500.
Clutch Dump. I am joined by the infamous, by the eloquent, by the silver-tongued Ben Walther, and he's going to be joining me as we embark on this expedition through endurance racing and the like. Before we get any further, before we jet off on our destination tour, make sure to follow us on social media at The Clutch Dump on Instagram. Follow us at The Clutch Dump Pod on YouTube. Drop a like, a subscription, and make sure to turn on that notification bell. And then wherever you're listening to us, make sure to leave a rating, leave a review if you like or dislike. That's okay, too. The podcast, and follow us on there. We're everywhere, whether it's SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, etc. And if you haven't already, make sure to check out the last episode while you're on the YouTube. Ben, how are you?
I'm doing swell. Nick, how is your schnoz?
My schnoz is congested. Thank you for asking, and I'm sure the listeners can tell if you're a repeat listener. But we had probably the busiest weekend of racing since the season start.
Yeah, there was...
and there was no F1, so that's surprising.
Surprising, actually.
Yeah.
Well, there was no F1, no rally.
No MotoGP.
No MotoGP. There was testing, but no race.
Right.
What else wasn't? No IndyCar.
That's true.
Yet this is still our most motorsport-filled episode ever. So at some point, these are going to get really chaotic.
Yeah, at some point, we're going to be like, all right, folks, that's it for part one of this 4-part series.
Right. Episode 41 and a half. We had a lot to talk about.
Do you want to start with WEC?
We can start with WEC because
I would love it.
We have the official starts of the World Endurance Championship for 2023. Yeah. We haven't had any racing, but we have had the prologue for the... Is it 12 hours of Sebring, or is it 1,000 miles of Sebring?
It's the 12 hours of Sebring when IMSA runs it. It's the 1,000 miles for WEC.
But they run at the same time.
They run on the same weekend. They're different races.
Interesting.
Entirely. So if I remember correctly, WEC's on Saturday. They run 1,000 miles, and then Sunday, IMSA runs, and they run the 12 hours, and it's the separate fields.
Weird. Okay, sure.
I actually like it. Like, if you were to go do Sebring, you're getting a ton of bang out.
I mean, that's
bang
true.
For your buck, but you actually have to buy tickets to 2 separate races.
Oh, do you actually?
I'm almost positive.
Oh, I mean, that makes sense.
I'm almost positive.
That's kind of dumb.
Me on that, but
well, I mean, to be fair, you are buying to be fair, when you go to an event at COTA, for example, you're buying tickets to the event, not tickets to COTA.
Right.
So
right.
That does make sense. Well, IMSA testing did finish up yesterday, I think, but I don't have the results.
You mean WC or
IMSA?
Oh, okay.
There's also an IMSA test before Sebring, but that either just finished or hasn't finished yet, so we're not talking about that. We'll talk about that probably Friday when we do kind of a Sebring and F1 prep episode. But we did see several cars that we haven't seen on the grid this year because we've only had IMSA, and those are the Toyota GR010, the Ferrari 499P, the Peugeot 9X8, the Van Wall 680, and the Glickenhaus SCG007.
Which the Glickenhaus and the Toyota are basically identical to last year's car.
Well, to be fair, they've been racing. Toyota has had like 4 or 5 years of this regulation.
Right.
So it should be no surprise to anyone. Spoiler alert: Toyota was running 1 and 2 at the end of the prologue. As far as lap times go, no one should be surprised about that. They've been doing this much longer than everyone else. They have ironed out all the kinks that no one else has. Right. They are the veterans of
the favorites,
right, of the hypercar class. So the big talking point is the Ferrari is really the big talking point.
Yeah, because I heard one got crinkled and crunched. Snap,
So
crackle, pop.
the number 51 car, I was not able to watch the prologue. We'll get to why in a bit. But the number 51 499P did end up in a wall in turn 1. And that is because, if you did not know, in the WEC...
Like coming out of the pit lane.
Yeah. Fresh tire change. Because in the World Endurance Championship, you are not allowed to run tire blankets anymore.
Still.
For the whole season,
Still.
you cannot run tire blankets. So
It is the prologue in a brand new car.
if you're going to wreck a car, wreck it in the prologue, not during the race.
But see, I feel like it's the opposite. If you're doing it during the race, you can at least say that you had pressure, you're trying to beat somebody out on track. You had negative pressure. Nobody was expecting anything. You could have taken
You
5
had
to 10
vacuum?
You could have taken 5 to 10 business days to get out of the pit lane, and nobody would have batted an eyelash. But instead, you binned it.
Well, either way, the number 50 Ferrari finished 6th in the weekend behind both Porsches, the one Cadillac running in WEC, and both Toyotas. Now, Ferrari, despite having an abundance of testing time, they didn't run at Daytona because that was an IMSA event, so this is their first event, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're not doing great here. But all eyes are on them, as it is 50 years since the last Ferrari works team that ran
Top class at Le Mans, right?
top class at Le Mans, and that was the, 312 PB, I think is what it was called? Yeah. So the 312 PB, which if memory serves me right, there were 11 races that season. It won 10 of them.
Believe it or not, between the two of us, I don't remember 1973 sports car statistics, but thank you.
Which is weird, because you were like 30 years old. But yeah, if memory serves me right, the 312 PB won 10 of the 11 races, and that's because it didn't enter the 11th race, if I remember correctly. So,
you can't win if you're not in.
So there's kind of a lot of eyes on Ferrari. It's 50 years back. It's the Centennial Le Mans. It's a whole thing. So...
But what's great about it is when Ferrari left, it was because Porsche was too good, and now Ferrari's back, and Porsche's just like, we happen to be back as well.
So, what some people are worried about is that we might get a 2016 Ford scenario here. Because balance of performance.
That's it.
Sorry, I was going to say balance I was going to say balance of power, but it's balance of performance. Because of BOP, what some people are worried about is it's like, oh, the Ferrari is going to sandbag between now and Le Mans so that WEC...
The Ferrari will break, though, or they'll crash coming out of pit lane.
So, probably both. So that that WEC will put BOP in the Ferrari's favor, but they've been sandbagging, and then they'll get to Le Mans, and it'll be like, hey, why are you all of a sudden 2 seconds faster than everyone else?
I don't think Ferrari will sandbag. How many races before Le Mans in WEC? 2? 3?
Almost every team has admitted that if they could pick winning the whole season and not Le Mans, or just Le Mans and losing the rest of the season, they would pick Le Mans. It is the race. It is more important than every other race that happens in the season, and they would give up the whole championship for that race. So
or you can be Porsche and have 17 overall wins. You don't need the one.
Or you could be interesting. Anyway, we got to see the Van Wall on track.
Like the Garage 56 car. Good point.
Yes. So, which is not running this weekend, sadly. But we did get to see the Van Wall on track, which I was super stoked to see, even though
Van Wall looks so good. I'm so happy Jacques Villeneuve is driving it. Dude.
It does look really good, and yes, Jacques Villeneuve was in the car. It didn't do the best, running a 150.038. That was its fastest lap of the weekend, which isn't great considering that the Toyotas ran a 148.2.
Ooh.
So, not great, but however,
it
is
better than the Ferrari.
It's worse than both Ferraris.
Oh, what? Hold up.
It was the only thing it did better. The only thing it did better than was the Glickenhaus.
Which, as we were talking about, have plenty of years of experience.
Well, actually, so the Van Wall and the Glickenhaus are the only two non-hybrid LMH cars on the grid. So all the other cars are hybrid. The Glickenhaus and the Van Wall are not. So those two will kind of be fighting their own little battle way at the back. So, but it
Also, Sebring is this weekend is in like 3 or 4 days, right?
Correct.
Okay, well, I won't be out of town for that, so we can watch it if you'd like.
Yes, we should watch Sebring depending on when it is, because I have lunch plans on Sunday. But
Probably
prologue,
after.
Nick Patty, how do you feel about your Porsches running 4 and 5?
Well, it reminds me of the Daytona testing and practice, where it was like, okay, I want them to be at the top, but they're not at the back, so take it like as a win.
Right.
I think Porsche's going to do well, and by well I mean top 5 with both cars, because I think Daytona is an advantage that they and Cadillac, that's it, will have over the rest of the field.
Yep.
And as we saw, no matter how much testing the LMDH field had at Daytona, they had tens of thousands of miles of testing. With all that, we still saw a plethora of mechanical failures or parts that were not quite as strong as they thought. So I'm confident that with Sebring being a much more demanding track physically, we will see as many, if not more, not retirements, but failures from the WEC grid that didn't have Daytona experience for the same reasons. So you throw in, let's see, you had Toyota 1-2, Cadillac 3. So we're really looking at, for cars that have already had an endurance race under their belt, under the new regulations, 1 in the Cadillac that had Daytona. Now, it'll be a question of how similar is this year's car to last year's car for Toyota, but here's the thing. As my grandfather said at Daytona, and then subsequently was proven wrong, Porsches don't break. They then subsequently broke.
However, do in fact break.
They've now fixed them. So, hopefully, I think if Porsche is 4th and 5th on pace, I think they can finish 3rd and 4th, or 3rd and 5th, or I think one car will be on the podium. Obviously, fingers crossed for a win, but...
Well, this the thing I'm actually most interested in is this is for the first time we will get to see during a race LMDH and LMH cars on the grid at the same time. So something to remember that while at Le Mans and in the WEC, all of these cars race in the hypercar class under the hypercar name. They are all labeled as hypercars. However, the Toyota, the Ferrari, the Peugeot, the Van Wall, and the Glickenhaus.
Everything that runs in WEC but not IMSA.
Right. Everything that runs in WEC but not IMSA is LMH, or Le Mans Hypercar. And the Cadillac and the Porsches are LMDH, or GTP, which is Le Mans Daytona Hypercar.
Do we know why Acura isn't running in WEC at all? Are there just no customer teams that wanted to buy them? Oh, well, they're LMDH, but why are they not running at Le Mans? Or are they?
I don't think they are.
That's strange to me.
Yeah. So, so we have an 11-car grid for this weekend, which I'm very excited for. I'm personally...
In Hypercar?
In
11-car
Hypercar.
grid.
11-car grid in
11
Hypercar.
cars for all of the 1,000 miles of Sebring.
All of the 1,000 miles. 11 cars. So, I think it's a 55-car grid. Something like that.
It's a large field.
For Sebring, it's very large. Still smaller than Le Mans, but it's Le Mans.
I'm so excited for Sebring, man. Like, WEC is one of those things that I don't watch a ton of, mainly because the broadcasts are on weird places that I don't want to pay for, or it's the time zones are so ungodly.
I don't know
different.
if you saw, because your nose doesn't work, but Instagram, WEC posted that they released a new WEC app, and you can now stream all of the races through an app on your phone.
For free, or?
No, of course not. I can't do anything for free, Nick. This
I
isn't
can't
free
breathe
right
for
here.
Free. Yeah.
Right now, this isn't
This
free.
is costing us money.
It is, as we speak.
I think WEC, I like it because it's, I don't know how to say this, because I like IMSA more.
Right.
But I always feel like WEC is better racing. But, like, it's not. Like, it's not objectively better. Like, IMSA, if you look at the actual on-track action between the Cadillacs and the Acuras and all that stuff in years past, it is globally recognized high-quality racing. Maybe it's just because it's too familiar. But WEC, every time I watch it, and I'm like, Ferrari, Toyota, like, all of these top flight cars that drive so hard. I don't know. It's a different. And then the GT field, it's weird because in IMSA, it's like you have all the manufacturers that are heavily invested in GT. And then it's typically privateer teams buying cars from manufacturers for the top class. But in WEC, it's almost the complete inverse, where almost all the manufacturer factory-back support is in the hypercar prototype class. And then if you look at GT, it's almost exclusively privateer teams up until a couple years ago when Porsche left the RSR and stuff. So,
so stay tuned for that. We're going to do a little preview on Friday, kind of run through the whole grid, what's to be expected. We better see you there, YouTube, or wherever you listen. Right,
sure
wherever you listen, wherever you watch.
Stay tuned this Friday.
Episode 43 on Friday, which we'll do a preview of that and of Formula One, which we did not have this past weekend, but what we did have this past weekend was... Nick, what do you want to talk about next?
Up to you. I picked WEC.
In that case, I'm going to talk about British Superbike testing. Now, British Superbike is a season, or is a series that...
Is the season? It's happened? It exists?
It's a series that I haven't followed super closely, but the chances that I do get to watch it, I have really enjoyed because all motorcycle racing is pretty great.
There's 10 people in the field, my guy.
No, there's 30 people in the field.
Why do I only see 10?
I only put the top 10 in there.
Oh, my mistake.
Because it's testing, is basically it. So, and like everyone after this was like a second or two off. Like they were running race pace. These dudes were running qualifying pace.
Hell yeah.
But we did have Kyle Ride for OMG Racing Yamaha at the top of the field with a 137.6.
Sorry, who racing? OMG?
OMG Racing. Oh my god, it's a Yamaha.
I lost all respect for British Superbike already, and we've only touched on one rider.
So he was the only rider to land in the 137. In the 137s, everyone else was in the 138s, 139s. Behind him was Leon Haslam for BMW with a 138.5. Everyone else was pretty close behind that with a 138.6, 138.8, 139. Things I want to talk about is Glenn Irwin, who finished P3 for PBM Ducati. He has returned to PBM Ducati after leaving in 2018 and going to race for Honda for a few years. Leon Haslam, who was in P2, looks strong despite being his first year on a BMW. He did leave British Superbike for a few years. But Kyle Ride really was the man of the weekend, landing P1 during testing, despite finishing last year in 6th in the championship. It was his rookie year, so well done to Kyle Ride. I'll make sure to look at that. Now, we did have, I'm going to talk about it, even though Nick doesn't want me to, Moto-E testing. So, Moto-E is the only form of racing that gets more hate than Formula E. It's the only one. But however, it's interesting this year because Ducati's manufacturing the bikes. They're 35 kilograms lighter than last year. They make the same amount of power at 150 horsepower. So this year, Eric Granada set a lap record during testing of a 147.053 on his Ducati V21L. The Energica lap record was a 147.778. Nick still hasn't...
How long did you have me muted?
Oh, a couple minutes. It's been a while. I could see you talking. It was very funny.
I was actually going to say something complimentary to Moto-E, but I'm just not going to. Like, I was actually going to have a conversation with you about, motorcycles and stuff like that. And then, you silenced me, so I'm just not going to have it.
Well, you insulted British Superbike, so I silenced you for that. Not for
Day in the life of a true Brexit geezer, getting on me crotch rocket. Like, okay, what do you want?
I don't know what any of that was. So, the Ducatis are faster. They're almost a second faster. However, for reference, a Moto3 bike runs a 144.988 around that track. So there's still, 3 seconds a lap, 2 seconds a lap slower. So like I said, the V21L, which is what it is named, is 35 kilograms lighter than the Energica bike. It weighs 225 kilograms still. That's 496 pounds. For those of you that don't know, that is kind of heavy for a bike.
Yeah.
My R6, which runs off of good old dinosaur juice, weighs 401 pounds. So, and to think that the batteries are in a carbon fiber box that is a stressed member, batteries are heavy, so they are pretty heavy, and they only make 150 horsepower. That's still a crazy amount.
Well, an insane amount of torque, no doubt.
Right, so the bike should be super quick. I'm excited to watch the season this year. It starts in April, I think. Now, we did have actual MotoGP testing, and it was the final test of the season, or the final test preseason, and that was the Portimao test. And to no one's surprise, Pecco Bagnaia was right up top, setting a new lap record not once, but twice, with a 1:37.968, first motorcycle to ever land in the 1:37s. Johan Zarco of Pramac Ducati landed second with a 1:38.264. So Pecco was about 3/10 up on the rest of the field. However, first through 21st was just split by just 1.7 seconds. So super impressive. Field looks super close this year, which I'm super excited for. If you're on YouTube, I will have the full results up on the screen. I'm not going to run through all 21 of them. But some talking points is Fabio Quartararo in P3. It's super nice to see.
I was going to say, that's impressive.
It's pretty impressive to see him up there, considering how poor the Yamaha has been recently and how bad he's talked about it. He said the team made incredible strides, and most of that was they returned a lot of the bike to the 2021 setup. They actually undid a lot of the work.
So they need to do what Mercedes should do.
Right, except Mercedes can't do that.
No, I understand.
So, however, if you are in the MotoGP community, you will have seen a ridiculous rear wing.
Yes, I saw that.
On the Yamaha, which I will put a picture up of.
I like it, on the screen. And then they can do a little swan deck and a little DRS.
I thought it was kind of cool. But it does look ridiculous on a bike. Fabio said that he couldn't feel a huge difference, so they were going to have to look at the data. But
there's only so much surface area on a bike to put aero.
Aero is one of those things that works differently on a bike because it pushes down vertically, but bikes lean out. Like, it's a whole weird thing of... Aero on bikes is a new thing that
they should just have it be a triangle with wings, so at any angle that they roll, it generates downforce.
Yeah, but the problem is...
Call me a genius.
The problem, though, is if
Ducati,
you lean...
call me.
Is if you lean, though, the one that's flat, the other one is going to create lift.
No, it'll just split the air. Left, right.
It's not at all how wings work.
That's why I'm not an engineer.
What it needs, actually, is, the Zinvo TSRS.
Yeah, the Zinvo, yeah.
Nick, have you been on the internet in the past 3 years? The weird, crazy supercar with the tilty wing? Nick, what do you do? Go out and let's get on the internet more. So, Zinvo TSRS, which I'll put a picture up of here, has a wing that pivots in the middle and has hydraulics. TSRS.
Oh, this thing?
Yeah, that thing. It's got a tilty wing. That's what they need. They need the tilty wing.
I don't know why I didn't recognize the name. Yeah, I know what this car is.
Yeah, so
it's
they need
not good looking.
No, it's not, but it has a tilty wing, and a tilty wing would work. So, well done to Fabio. He said they made a ton of progress, but I still don't think that they will be anywhere near Pecco. Now, two people that I really want to talk about is the Marquez brothers. Now, if you
What about the Binder brothers? Come on, man.
Well, there's only one Binder this year.
I know, I see that, and it's honestly depressing.
It is, but...
My boy Darren.
Well, he's in Moto2 now, so we still get to see him. So... The Marquez brothers, if you recall, 2 years ago, Alex Marquez came up from Moto2 to MotoGP, won Moto3 in his rookie year, Moto2 in his rookie year, and then jumped to MotoGP.
He's like Oscar Piastri.
Yes, so everyone says that Alex Marquez was only brought up because his brother Mark put in a good word for him and blah, blah, blah. Turns out the dude's actually really fast. He was just stuck on a Honda.
To win the championships in Moto2 and Moto3, you actually have to be able to ride a bike.
You actually have to be good at riding motorcycles.
Kind of crazy.
Alex Marquez for Gresini Ducati, which I'd like to remind you is a satellite team. He's running last year's bike. Finished 7th in the standings for testing.
Wow, and Mark Marquez in 14th.
Mark Marquez finished 14th for Repsol Honda.
Now, granted, the gap was only 0.3.
0.3, which isn't a lot, but it's also MotoGP, and the gap for the whole grid at the finish of a race is normally no more than 3 seconds.
Right.
So, which to you F1 fans is mind-blowing, I know.
They're like...
Right, as Max, who had a 40-second gap to the nearest Ferrari last race. or to Alonso. What's
It's
Spaniard? Whatever his name is.
you mean the Saudi Arabia race winner for 2023?
Sorry.
Did you see the F1 poster? Him front and center?
That's Friday, Nick. We're Friday. Friday? Relax. Friday.
Right now.
So, Marc Marquez finished 14th for Repsol Honda. And the thing that I was actually most excited about is Joan Mir, who is now at Repsol Honda because he left Suzuki because Suzuki
went
left
under.
us all. Joan Mir finished 13th ahead of Marc Marquez on the Honda, which I'm super stoked about because that Honda is notoriously horrible and very difficult to ride. So hopefully Mir can, I don't know, put in some top 10s, maybe some podiums this year on that Honda, and he can get along with it. Another thing that we are concerned about, we being the MotoGP community, that includes you, Nick Patty, because you're stuck with me, is Dorna Sport, which is the people that own MotoGP, have raised the minimum tire pressure for all of 2023, so people are concerned about more low sides,
Right.
and a lot more crashes, which
How much did they raise it by? Did they say?
I don't think they said, but it is apparently it's enough to have riders concerned, and they don't like it.
Well, riders would be concerned at any change,
Right,
just
and
because it's
this
different.
is mainly a safety thing, as almost all of the bikes, for almost every manufacturer, the rider's concern is, oh, we don't have enough front grip, and then they went and
Right.
raised the tire pressure, so that's not going to help that situation. But this was the final test before the start of the season. That is coming March 26th, so not this weekend, but the following weekend. We will make sure to update you on all that. Our last bit of motorcycle news before we hand it back to Nick and something else. We did have the Daytona 200 this past weekend. That is for the Moto-America season. That's our own little America-only motorcycle season.
That is a sick team name, Warhorse. Like
Warhorse Ducati, yeah.
You have OMG Racing in British Superbike
Oh
with
my
all
gosh.
the taxation and the monarchy
Right,
and the queen.
right. Mm-hmm.
Rest in peace. And then you have America with barbecue guns, Eagles, Freedom, muscle cars, and you have Warhorse Ducati.
It's actually a New York City-based team.
Not only that, like, it's a little weird, but you got Squid Hunter, which
Attack
is
Performance.
also sick. Disrupt. Like,
Disrupt Racing.
these
Feral
are awesome.
Performance.
Moto
Yeah.
Corsa.
Oh, yeah.
Dietz Barbecue Racing?
Absolutely, dude. Welcome to Moto-America.
Wow, that's awesome.
Welcome to Moto-America. So Moto-America, for those of you who don't know, is a super sport race, not a super bike race. So the top class of bikes do not run in this race because it is such a long race and there is refueling, and they'd have to refuel like every 40 laps or something like that. So it's a super sport race, and it was won by one Josh Herron on his Ducati Panigale V2 for Warhorse Racing.
Let's go.
I will put all of the results up here, but Moto-America is one of those seasons, or one of those series. Moto-America is one of those series.
Good thing you don't get paid for this.
Good thing, man. No one would pay me for this shit.
Well, you would have been fired.
So I'm going to fire myself. So, Moto-America, they were 5 wide on the banks with
Suicidal.
3 laps to go.
Suicidal, I tell you.
Like, motorcycle racing is so much closer than car racing, 4-wheeled racing. It's just
automotive racing.
Well, we don't need to get into that. Technically, it is an automobile. But motorcycle racing is super close. It was a great race to watch. I really enjoyed it. Shout out to COTA for having good Wi-Fi because I was able to watch it while I was there.
There you go.
Stoked for that. Well done to Josh Herron. I don't know when our next race is. I should have written it down, but I didn't. It'll be up here on the screen.
Wow.
Ding. So,
Ding.
Nick, you didn't know we had notes until 20 minutes ago. Relax.
See, that's the comedy in it.
Nick, would
Speaking
you like
of
to...
COTA, no, just go for it. Well, no, actually, you know what? Good point.
You haven't talked for a while, Nick.
God, it's
you
been
want to
nice.
talk about NASCAR?
Yeah, let's do NASCAR.
NASCAR drag racing. What are we
I'll do
doing?
NASCAR.
Perfect.
So if you can't tell, Ben is a fan of tyranny and oppression and all this European stuff. and I get NASCAR and NHRA, so welcome to America. Go ahead.
God save the Queen or something.
Unbutton those pants. Let that belly breathe with your Thanksgiving Day leftovers.
Says the very skinny Italian man.
Wearing the Porsche Motorsport hat. That's besides the point.
Anyway.
So NASCAR raced at Phoenix Speedway, Raceway. I don't know what the hell it's called. If you have been a fan of the Clutch Dump and you've listened to our previous episodes and you go back far enough, you'll remember the championship race from last year in NASCAR. Watson, I swear to God, I'm using my hand gestures intentionally. I don't need help. It's like a puppeteer over here. By the way, he's up next for your job. Will you stop?
Sounds like he's getting fired too.
Yeah. What? You're fired. You don't know what that means. So if you remember, Phoenix Raceway is where the championship race was last season to conclude the season, where Joey Logano won his second, I think, championship in the NASCAR Cup Series. And our feedback, our thoughts, besides Rutledge hanging from the sky, having some tapas and a glass of red wine, was the fact that there's basically no racing line around the track. And so if you remember that episode, we're back at Phoenix for the third, I think, race of the season, behind Daytona, and the Clash didn't count, but there was another one. That all being said, this race I watched from the end of Stage 1 onward. I was busy, so I didn't get around to watching it, but then I started watching for, Stage 2 and Stage 3. This race was actually a pretty good race for a couple reasons. One, for the reason that was aforementioned, the lack of a particular racing line makes it really entertaining. You had at a time, at the final restart, cars going 7 wide off the restart. Just an absolute cluster. And
which is nuts for not a super speedway.
Well, yeah, exactly. But that's exactly why they can't do it, because there's such a limit. There's such a shallow angle of the banking that you can have grip on the apron. So Phoenix happened. William Byron was on pole. He won the last race. So he was kind of coming with a bit of momentum into this weekend. He also had the sickest paint scheme of any car on track with his retro Valvoline paint scheme. That thing looks sick. So he was on track. The Hendrick cars were all looking strong. Chase Elliott was still out. He was replaced by Josh Berry this weekend, who at COTA, Chase Elliott will be replaced by Jordan Taylor, as we announced in the most recent episode, if you go check that out. So Hendrick, doesn't have Chase, but the number 9 car actually still got a top 10, so congrats to Josh Berry. That's a career best in the Cup Series. And this race had a couple talking points. So the first one is we have more Hamlin and Chastain drama. Why can't somebody just settle it for good? Like, why can't Hamlin or Chastain just spin the other one so intentionally and so egregiously that they're not hurt, but that it clearly sends a message that, hey, we're done. This beef has been settled. But they can't. They always find each other on the track. So that's talking point number 1. Talking point number 2 is Kevin Harvick worked his way up through the field in a car that did not look competitive. It was slow in the short runs. It only took long runs before it showed any sort of pace that was competitive with the rest of the field, and particularly the Hendrick cars. He worked his way up. And while Kyle Larson was trying to figure out which racing line he wanted to be on, his engineer, or his crew chief, Cliff Daniels, literally was like, God, dude, what are we doing? We don't need to be doing that right now. And Kyle's like, yeah, sorry, my bad. That's not a joke. Go listen to the radio. Kevin Harvick worked his way up through the field, gets past, not just catches up to, but gets past Kyle Larson, who was in second, I believe, at the time. Or no, actually, he was in the lead. So Kevin Harvick was like 10 laps away from winning this race. It's his last season in the Cup Series. He was in the number 4 car, and a caution comes out because Harrison Burton had his right front. He had a spin, and they couldn't tell if the puncture came first or if the puncture came from the lockup and the 4-wheel slide. But he had a right front tire that obliterated the front of his car that went down. So there was a caution. They picked up the debris. The race restarted with like 3 or 4 laps left. All the cars came into pit. Here's the thing. Kevin Harvick, being the leader and being slower on the long runs, has the most to lose if he puts on new tires and if he comes out of the pit lane without track position. So he didn't decide to change tires. William Byron came in, changed 2 right side tires and got fuel and got out of the pit lane in second behind Kyle Larson. And Ben, if you haven't seen it, you can throw up the little clip. But the video of William Byron's last pit stop, they were cutting it so close on time. I kid you not, the right front tire changer picks up the tire, grabs the wheel gun, starts running around the front of the car as it's dropped. William Byron starts taking out of the stall. The driver jumps up and, like, drags his ass across the left front side of the car and keeps his feet, like a football player, right inside the pit crew box. Like, I'm not kidding you. It was so badass. It was like all in one motion. The guy didn't even look phased or stunned. Like, he took it in stride.
Professional.
Gets him out in second. So that was super cool. William Byron ends up overtaking Kyle Larson, survives the melee with the 6 and 7 wide going into turn 1. They're coming out of, going into turn, I don't know. Phoenix is such a weird track because the finish line is like in the middle of one of the corners.
I remember that.
William Byron ends up winning the race, going 2 in a row. He's locked into the playoffs. He had that with his race win last weekend. So he's in the playoffs, 2 race wins in a row. Hendrick wins. Like, heartbreak for Kevin Harvick. So let me run through the finishing order. We had William Byron in first. We had Ryan Blaney in second. Tyler Reddick in third. Kyle Larson in fourth. Kevin Harvick in fifth. Christopher Bell sixth. Chase Briscoe seventh. Kyle Busch eighth after an early penalty. So that was a hell of a drive by Kyle Busch. Alex Bowman in ninth. And Josh Berry with a career best Cup Series finish in the number 9 of Chase Elliott in 10th place. And I'm not going to go through the rest of the field order. The last talking point is if you listen to the last episode of the Clutch Dump, episode 41. Go check it out on YouTube or wherever you're listening.
Check it out.
We talked about the Fox Sports criticism of Fox Sports for the NASCAR coverage. Mike Joy, God love him, a hero.
Mm-hmm.
A hero for those of us that just enjoy what we get to see on TV. He said, going into their last full-screen commercial break, this. And when he said it, my jaw literally dropped and I was laughing. Like, did he just really say that? Mike Joy, typically, if you listen, has a soft, even keel demeanor, welcoming tone. And he was fed up with it. He was done. And he's really active on Twitter, which is strange for a 73-year-old. Mike Joy goes, for all of those keyboard warriors on Twitter and wherever else, I'm going to say this slowly and in one-syllable words. This is our last full-screen break. And then I think he said before the end of the race or something to that effect. And I was like, did he really? Did he really just call out the Redditors that are bitching about Fox Sports coverage of NASCAR races? So now he's under heat for that. I saw an article in my recommended news on my phone about how Mike Joy is now under fire from pundits saying that wasn't professional and how Fox Sports really needs to get their act together and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, guys, y'all just couldn't take it that Mike Joy decided to chirp back at y'all. But anyways, that was my favorite part of the weekend for the racing.
And we have one more bit of NASCAR news.
Oh?
So, I don't know if you saw this, but 9 hours ago, Legacy Motor Club announced that Jimmy Johnson will be driving the number 84 Camaro ZL1 at NASCAR COTA.
Oh, yay. Jimmy Johnson, who's not good at road courses, is going to be racing on a road course. Yay.
Well, that means that we have Jenson Button, who is racing the Garage 56 car, Jimmy Johnson, who's racing the Garage 56 car, and Jordan Taylor, who's coaching the drivers of the Garage 56 car.
So that's the question, a good point. Jenson Button is going to walk Jimmy Johnson.
So the question is, between now and then, is Mike Rockenfeller going to be announced as driving in NASCAR at COTA? Are they going to get all 3 drivers in NASCAR?
I don't think so, purely because Button is racing a Ford with Rick Ware Racing.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have nothing to do, obviously, with Chevy or Hendrick, who obviously is running the Garage 56 car. Right. So I think it's more coincidental than anything. I don't think they are intentionally...
Well, the Jimmy Johnson thing I get, because, well, he races NASCAR.
And he's a co-owner of Legacy Motor Club, so...
Right. That makes sense. He basically announced to... He's like, hey, I hired myself for the weekend.
He's like, hey, guys, I decided I'm going to race after all.
Yeah. So, Jordan Taylor, because well, he's always wanted to race a NASCAR race, and COTA is the least NASCAR
I
race.
really hope he has another Dale tribute helmet like he did in the Corvette, because that was sick.
So, but I'd be really stoked if Mike Rockenfeller does get a seat. Like, they all just went out and asked, like, hey, is there any NASCAR teams that have an extra car line
I just
around?
really want Kimi Räikkönen to beat all of them, so then Hendrick can be like, maybe we hired the wrong guys. Because here's the thing. Going into COTA weekend, Jordan and... Yes, Jordan. Just Jordan.
Yes.
Should theoretically, barring some unforeseen incident, absolutely thrash the other drivers for a few reasons. One, aside from Kimi Räikkönen, he has the... and maybe Jensen Button. It's probably a close call there. Has the most experience on COTA over anybody. Secondly... He has the most experience in cars similar to a Cup car compared to Jensen Button or whatever. And he's been with the Garage 56 team doing the testing and stuff. So he's not altogether too unfamiliar with the stock car. And last but not least, he's driving with the best team in a former champion's car.
Right.
So if Jordan doesn't, like, no offense to Rick Ware Racing, not a good team. If Jordan finishes behind Jensen Button without having been taken out or something, or a flat, or if he finishes even behind Kimi, who is fantastic, and Team Trackhouse is super fast.
Yes.
Like, I'll give it to him.
Also another good race team name.
But still, Jordan has more experience in these NASCARs. I will be shocked. But who knows? Dude, I am so stoked. So stoked to go to that race, dude. Like, I was already stoked without any of these announcements. And now I'm going to get to see those announcements. Oh, that's what I meant to say, is if Jordan beats Jimmy Johnson, then that's also a huge feat, because Jimmy is supposed to be, tied with Dale and Richard, most successful NASCAR driver in the history of the sport.
Right.
And is a Garage 56 driver. But if he doesn't do well, dude, imagine a Rockefeller Button Raikkonen Garage 56 Le Mans entry. That would have been so much better.
They have to have a NASCAR driver in there. Have to. So... Anyway,
I'll defend my earlier point. They should have gotten Dale Earnhardt Jr. in there. Get Jr. in there, baby. Come on.
I think that'd be cool. So that is going to do it. That is going to do it for NASCAR. So what else do we have?
NHRA, Newcastle 500, and something that happened at COTA with a bunch of pieced together cars.
Oh my gosh! You didn't. Okay, it's fine. There were.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, did I say something that triggered you on an episode of the podcast? Wow.
There were LMP3 cars there.
Wow, the least relevant racing class.
So, Super Lap Battle happened this past weekend at COTA, and I was there, and it is probably one of my most...
I figured it out. Nice try.
I'll just kick you out of the session. I can do that. It's pretty fun. So, Super Lap Battle did happen this past weekend at COTA. It is probably my most favorite event that happens at COTA every year. I like it because it's not just race car drivers driving race cars. It's people who are knowledgeable about cars driving race cars that they built themselves, which I find far more impressive than just being a race car driver. No offense to pro race car drivers, but I think people that put their own money and time into building a car and then go and thrash on it and quite literally break their car in half is far more impressive. So, we did see several records fall. Actually, records fall in every single class. The classes are Unlimited, Limited, Street, Pro Comp, and Enthusiast. And I will start from top to bottom. So in Unlimited, we did have Ferris Khartoumi in his Carbon Kevlar C6 Z06 set a new overall record of 2 minutes, 3 seconds, 0.850. That just narrowly beat out his previous record that he set last year. He was trying to go for a sub 2 minute lap, but it just didn't happen this year. Behind him was Cole Powelson in that Life Motorsports GTR. If you're familiar with Time Attack or Pikes Peak Hill Climb, you will be familiar with this car. It is named Sydney. It has raced in Australia several times. He did a 204.379, and that is a new all-wheel drive record for Time Attack at COTA. And then in third place was Cable Rosenberg in a 5th Gen Viper ACR. He ran a 2 minute 13.402. That car has a paddle shifted sequential and a 9-liter V10. that was by far the best sounding car there. That car was awesome.
I bet.
And kudos to Ferris, because the night before, so Friday night, event started Saturday. Friday night, he had the engine apart. He had the cylinder heads off of the car. He had them remachined because he had some valve train issues and had no compression in the motor.
On a Viper, nice.
No, in the Z06.
Oh, my mistake.
In the Z06. He had the heads off the night before. It was like 6 p.m. and he was posting on Instagram, like the motor was taken apart. And he goes, "Oh, no worries, the event isn't until tomorrow." And he wasn't even in Austin. Like, he wasn't there yet. He still had to trailer the car there. So got the heads fixed, put it back on, threw a tune in the car, drove it there.
Unreal.
And then still broke his lap record. And the other thing about this car is that it actually makes so much front downforce, it cracked his frame in half.
Are you serious?
So there will be pictures of this car up on the screen, and it made the front wing it's about a foot wider than the Z06 on each side, and it actually makes so much downforce that the frame rails right in front of the firewall cracked after his first after day one. He trailered the car to a buddy's shop. They welded the frame back up, plated it, came back, and the next day broke the record. So that's why Time Attack is super cool. It's these dudes
Because
that are...
it's amateur. That's
yes,
why.
That's why. Nick, you were an amateur race car driver.
I'm not even. I won't even claim that.
No, because that is exactly what this is. You cannot be a pro driver. Actually, your car...
I was going to say, is there a class that the Turbo Cup could fit in?
Your car would not be allowed in Time Attack.
Then they don't deserve it.
Your car would race in what's called Pro Comp,
Which I know is much faster cars.
factory-built race cars. So to race in Time Attack, it has to be a production car with a VIN number sold at a dealership. It has to be a street car. So your car is a street car, so I don't know.
I don't know if they were ordered through dealerships, but they might have been. They might have been.
So your car would be iffy. Your car would probably have to run in street, in which case, like, would totally get smoked. But your car doesn't have an interior.
Yes, it does. It has carpets. It has 2 seats. It's got regular seatbelts.
Okay, so your car would race in street, but street is running 2-minute 13-second laps.
What cars run in street, bro?
Brand new Toyota Supras.
With aero. That's pretty garbage. Is
and
that it?
750 horsepower. So
just Supras?
No, and Subarus and Hondas and Viper and a couple Z06s. So, but next we have limited class, which was won by Eric Fleming, who sets a class record in his C6 Z06, which
What's
apparently
the slowest class?
The slowest class, Enthusiast, which was a
What's
226
on that.
No aero.
Done. It's a 944.
No aero, can't be a pro driver, can't have any engine modification. Like, it basically is just stock vehicles. Like, I think you can have, like...
And my car is how it came from the factory.
Tune on it, but I don't know if your car would count for Enthusiast, because your car has a cage in it.
But that's how it came from the factory.
So your car might be able to run an Enthusiast, but Enthusiast was running 2-minute 26.
Well, on street tires, I was running around a 250.
Actually, you know what? I take that back. Enthusiast was running aero. Because the car that won, I did look at, and he did have aero, but you're only allowed aero. Like, the rear wing can only be, like, 5 inches off the deck lid.
If they were running 226s, I was running a 250, which is a lot slower. But I was on street tires, so let's say I gained 10 seconds with slicks that are nice and sticky.
10 seconds with slicks?
I was
running
a 250 in traffic, too, because it wasn't an actual race. I had to wait for people to wave me by.
Right.
On tires that have already had 6 heat cycles through them, and they're Pirelli street tires.
Correct.
So if I had a fresh set of slicks at the right temp with no traffic, I think 10 seconds is a reasonable expectation.
And there is no traffic in any of these classes.
Right.
I think your problem would be brakes. because brakes is where you make up time.
What's wrong with my brakes?
You don't have enough of them, just more brakes.
They have the 928 brakes, and I have Padgett race pads. I mean, come on.
I'd actually be quite interested to see how your car does. Anyway, back to limited. So Eric Fleming and his
how much
C6.
does it cost to register? That's what I'm getting to, Ben.
Oh, I have no idea. Probably a lot more than a DE.
All right, you keep talking. I'm just going to look it up.
Yeah. So Eric Fleming and his C6 Z06 ran a 2-minute 12.271. Yes, that does mean that the fastest car in limited was faster than third place in unlimited. That is a class record. Behind him, Clayton Yates in a C7 Z06 ran a 2:16.802. Behind him was Gabe Zamora in his GT3 RS. That ran a 2:16.994.
Jeez Louise.
What?
That's just fast for a GT3 RS. Is absurd.
Freaking nuts. In street class, Jackie Ding, if you are any way, shape, fashion, or form interested in time attack, you will have heard the name Jackie Ding of PhD Racing in his GR Supra. He ran a 2:13.870. That is a full interior car, still running the 8-speed automatic transmission. So, super impressive from Jackie Ding. That is an overall class record. Behind him was Kyle McKeough, also of PhD Racing, also in a GR Supra, ran a 2:22.766. Behind them, Johnny Hernandez in his Impreza STI ran a 2:22.851. So him and Kyle McKeough were very close, just about a tenth, just under a tenth of a second off. Next, we have Pro Comp class. Now, the thing about Pro Comp class is it is a class that is held at Super Lap Battle. It is not a class in time attack. They do not consider it to be part of a class. You cannot win the event if you run in Pro Comp class. So that is for factory-built race cars. That is for cars you cannot buy at a dealership, non-street legal cars. So, also, tube chassis cars. If you build your car into a tube chassis race car, you have to run in Pro Comp. You cannot run in any of the other classes. So Pro Comp did see the fastest time of the weekend, and that was Rafael Martinez in Rafa Racing. He was in a McLaren 720 GT3X. He ran a 2-minute 00.803. Super impressive. No one expected that car. Well, obviously, like, we expected it to be there, but no one expected it to be running 2-minute flat. So Rafa Racing did build that motor, so it was not a stock 720 GT3X. If you're unfamiliar with that, that is the 720 GT3 car, basically with the rulebook thrown out. It's a customer racing only car that McLaren built. This car had upgraded turbos, downpipes, tuned, that sort of thing. And they set an overall class record with that 2-minute flat and did have the fastest time of the weekend. I'm going to say, thankfully, they didn't run sub 2 minutes, because I'd like to see Ferris do that. I think that'd be much more impressive than seeing a purchased McLaren 720 GT3X do that record. Behind him was Jensen Little, who was running a Norma M30. That is a LMP3 car. This is a modified LMP3 car. It's running a Link ECU, had a modified engine in it. He ran a 2-minute 3-second.604. So that is just 0.2 of a second faster than Ferris's home-built C6 Z06. Yes, Nick Patty.
My car can run in the enthusiast class. The only thing I don't have is a rear tow hook.
Oh, that's easy to fix.
Except I'm not going to drill into the car, so I don't know where the rear tow hook would go in.
Oh, put a different bumper on the car.
Absolutely not.
Why not?
No.
What do you mean, why not? Also, it would by far be the most expensive car in enthusiast and street class.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. And I am so okay with finishing last, but it would be it's a sanctioned SCCA event, and I'd be on track, and people would be there to watch. So that's pretty cool.
This is true. So Jensen Little did come second in his Norma M30 LMP3 car, and third place was Jason Chen in a Ginetta LMP3 car. He ran a 2-minute 7.918. Now, enthusiast class, this is always a very close class every year. It's super fun to watch. And Jonathan Wheeler came first in his TRP Racing Nismo 370Z. He set an overall class record with a 2-minute 26.800. 2.0. Behind him was Jeffrey Ting in a Civic Type R. He ran a 2:26.963, so just about a tenth and a half slower than Jonathan Wheeler. And then Gregory Formosa came third in his Evo X with a 2:32.1.
What was the slowest time?
7.1. I have no idea.
Damn.
I only noted the top three. But, I mean, slowest time, there were people in Enthusiast running. No, because he was running... I mean, like, there's people in... So you gotta take slowest time with a grain of salt, because a lot of people build cars not for a class. They build the car that they want to, and then just end up in whatever class they get thrown into.
Right.
So, like, for the past couple of years, there's been a Volkswagen
I'm looking
Golf.
it up.
There's been a Volkswagen Golf that runs in Unlimited because it's rear-wheel drive converted and has a Honda motor in it.
But it's slow, unlike the other classes,
right.
the other cars in the Unlimited class.
Right, so whereas Ferris was running 203s, this dude was running like 230s.
That's absurd.
So, I mean, to be fair, I think everyone was below a 250 for the weekend.
Well, right. All right, listen, all right, fine, but yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, heads up, everyone was faster than that. And the other thing is, in enthusiast class, you can't run slicks.
I just saw that, but you know what? Then
Right.
that's fine. All I gotta do is just get some less tready slicks.
There's tire regulations. I think you're limited to a.
They had the tread depth and stuff. I just pasted the link to the regulations for enthusiast class.
Yeah, so, and some notable mentions that did not make it into the top threes was Amir from RS Future, his NSX. Super clean build. It is a,
Bed.
What? I'm terrified.
There are 3 cars in the 240s. With a 242, a 244, and a 247. A WRX STI, Mitsubishi Evolution, a Volkswagen Golf R.
I know exactly what Golf R that is, because I saw him doing laps, and I was like, yeah, he is not winning this. Amir from RS Future had his NSX out. That is a car that I've been following the build on. It's nuts. That car weighs like 2,200 pounds. Jeez. Weighs nothing. It's got a turbo K-Series in it. RS Future builds aero kits. That is what they do. He was running a prototype wing there. There will be a picture of the car up here. This wing was like 6 inches wider than an NSX. Jeez. It was like 10 inches deep. Fully carbon fiber. It weighed 3 pounds, Nick. Even for carbon fiber,
absurd.
It weighed nothing. For reference, I was talking with the guys from Life Motorsports who had the R35 GTR, his run up Pikes Peak.
Oh, geez, yeah.
They said that the carbon fiber rear wing on that car weighs probably close to 100 pounds. So
that's almost impressive that you can get that wing up to 100 pounds.
It's a triple element wing. It's like a triple bunk
that's
bed.
Right.
It's
yeah.
huge. So Amir from RS Future with that prototype wing was nuts. Stoked to see that car. He was only running in the I think he did like a 2:15.8, which I think put him 4th in Unlimited.
How many laps do you get on a run?
Well, here's the thing. It's time attack, so no one runs for the whole session.
Right, but how does it work? Explain it for the people that don't know, like moi.
For the people that don't know, how it works is, so it's an hour and a half long. It's like an hour and a half, hour and 45 minute long session. Okay, and it will be session 1, and you're split into 4 groups: Group 4, Group 3, Group 2, Group 1. Okay, and that the groups are split up by lap time.
Right.
So you can be in an unlimited class car, but if you're running 240s, you're in Group 4. If you're in street class like Jackie Ding, but you're running 213s, you're in Group 1. So it's split up by time. It's not split up by class. So. And then they run in descending order: Group 4, Group 3, Group 2, Group 1.
I already have rear tow hooks on my car. That's what I bent up under the car when you were there and we looked up underneath it.
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
And you want to know how much it costs for enthusiast class for the race? Or for
how much?
$250.
Really? That's pretty impressive.
Your 4th gen could almost run.
I bet you the 4th gen would be faster than the Turbo Cup.
You want to bet me the cost of entry?
No.
Okay, all right.
But I'm just saying those straights are really long.
Not long enough.
I think so.
No. Wait, what were you just saying, though, about having enough brakes? I don't think you'd get stopped before you get back to San Antonio.
I can get brakes before next year.
Well, that's true.
I'll build the Camaro before next year. I can do that.
You totally could. You should.
So they run in 4 different groups, and after every session, they reorder the groups. So if you run faster than you did in your previous one, and you get bumped into the time section of the next group, whether it's Group 3, Group 2, Group 1, they reshuffle everything after every session.
I would be so okay with finishing at the back, but running in that. That would be so cool. And it would be a 944.
And it would be a 944.
Nobody else is going to be out there in one because they want to be fast, and I'm going to be out there.
I don't think there was a Boxster or a Cayman there. I think it was only 911s.
That's actually impressive that there wasn't a Cayman. You would think for Super Lap Battle, if you're going for balance and all-out performance,
really high price of entry, really low reward.
I feel like a Cayman, though, if someone built out a Cayman, would thrash a 911.
Well, the problem is, so certain cars, if you buy certain cars that are really fast, you automatically get bumped into a higher class. So, if you buy a stock Cayman GTS, you can't race it in Enthusiast. You automatically get bumped to Street.
Right, no, I know. But I'm saying, if you were to get a Cayman, I don't know why you wouldn't just run it in Unlimited, try to beat the Z06, slap turb skis on it, go full out, and just know that the platform of the car is something you want to try to take to the...
Yeah, I think there were a couple 911s there that I think in the next year or two will become Unlimited class cars.
Not going to lie. I hate it so much, but I was so happy to see the LS 911.
Dude, okay, so I sent it to you, and I was waiting for... It was super cool. So that dude was... So I'll put up pictures of the car in the video if I still have it. But it was a... What was it? 997?
Yeah, 997.
Yeah, so it was a 997 GT3 Cup car. It was an actual Cup car.
Okay, that makes me like it a lot less.
That they bought with a blown motor.
Okay. Listening.
They bought with a blown motor, and now it has a dry sump 427 cubic inch LS in it. And it sounds rowdy. And wow. I talked with him, and he's like, is it better than a normal 911? Absolutely not. But you smile a lot more. So
that's also true.
So that car was super cool. But there was there was a GT2 RS Club Sport there, which was nuts. There were a couple GT3 RS Club Sports there.
Yo.
What?
I know I keep interrupting. Okay.
Yes, it's very annoying.
Listen, it is our podcast, and I am excited about Super Lap Battle. So I would think
I know
you would count your lucky stars, all right?
Yes.
So in Unlimited class, the slowest time was a 224. In Limited class, the slowest time was a 313. The second slowest was a 241. So that's ballparking. Street class, you have 4 cars above a 240. 241, 242, 244, 247.
Mm-hmm.
In Enthusiast, you have the 242, 244, 247. And then in the Pro Comp, you have a 241. Not that I think I'm going to be running 240s on street tires. However,
right.
I think the 247s, with a few more DEs and practicing and refining, I could get to a 247.
Yeah.
But there was one of those in 3 of the 5 classes.
Right.
So I wouldn't be last in the slowest class. I would be
last in the decent class.
I'd be last in more classes rather than just last in one class.
Yeah.
That's hey, I could be out there in a $200,000 Cup car against the Honda Accord and the Honda S2000.
Dude, so many S2000s.
I'm not surprised.
That's the thing I always forget about Time Attack is, which for starters, A90 Supras, the GR Supra, is the new S2000 of Time Attack.
This guy was in a GT2 RS, and he was slower than a... Was the Duzel Designs Camaro the absurd first-gen one?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, I was like, I'm sorry, what Camaro is faster than a GT2? And I was like, wait.
So this is the next car on my notable mentions, is the Dussol Design 67 Camaro. So this car has raced Pikes Peak several times. And this is one of those things where the lines get really blurry. This car was in Unlimited because it's not a tube chassis car. it is technically still a 67 Camaro, despite the fact that it has a single-turbo LS7 and a sequential transaxle.
Jeez.
So it has the rear suspension out of a C5 or C6 Corvette and a SADEV sequential transmission, and it's dry sump, cantilever suspension, air jacks, the whole nine. It is a crazy built car. And sadly, they only ran on day one. They ended up blowing up the diff at the end of day one, so they didn't get to run on day two. But that was the car I was most stoked to see.
Ben.
What?
The Supra, there was a Supra that ran a 244, okay?
Yes.
And I was like, that Supra's running a 244, and I look it up. This one is the red, white, and black one with all the stupid arrow on it.
No, he ran a... No.
Ben?
Jackie Dean ran a 213.870.
I just looked up Toyota Supra PhD Racing Lab for the Supra.
PhD Racing ran 4 Supras this weekend.
Son of a bitch. Well, okay. Still, though, it's a Supra that's in a class that's running slow times.
Bone stock Supra, I talked to him.
Really?
Bone stock. Untouched. Doesn't even have an exhaust on it. Not a tune, not an exhaust, not seats, nothing. Bone stock Supra.
That makes me really depressed.
Oh, you want to be even more depressed?
Stop.
There's 4-door Lexus sedans there.
It's the IS300. I saw it on the...
Yeah, not even an F-Sport.
But he ran a 241. Home Depot Racing. No shot he's actually sponsored by Home Depot. Is that real?
I don't know, but that'd be really funny. And then probably the most important notable mention is RS Motorsports Trans Am. So this car blew up on the internet. Blew up on the internet a couple years ago. He won the SEMA Young Guns battle in this car a couple years ago. It is a white, 73 Trans Am. It sits about half an inch off the ground. Full tube chassis, custom hand-built bodywork. He did it all at his house.
Good on him.
He built this car in his garage at home. It's got a 10,000 RPM LS in it.
How?
What do you mean how? My car revs to 7,500.
That's not 10,000, Ben.
It's pretty close.
It's not close enough. It's closer to my stock LS3 than it is to 10,000. So
this is true. Also, which to be fair, that is like a $70,000 LS probably. And it's the same thing. It's cantilever suspension. It's air jacks.
It's everything.
The car is meticulous and spotless, and it was super cool to see it there. He built it. He drives it. He's a wheelman. He was running super fast, which was impressive to see. And then last car I'm going to mention is the Attacking the Clock Racing Datsun 240Z. This car you've also probably seen. It blew up on the internet a couple years ago. It is a full carbon fiber body Datsun 240Z with a single turbo LS in it. You might see a trend of turbocharged LSs in this sport.
Wait, and you said that was the 240?
Datsun 240Z.
Yeah, he ran a 235, so...
Right.
Which I would expect that to be quicker.
Different driver, I think.
Sean Bassett?
Yeah, not the original driver of the car.
Still a 235.
So a bunch of these cars were actually testing, basically reliability, because a lot of these cars are going to go run up Pikes Peak, and that is one of them. So they weren't super concerned with times. They were just concerned with pushing and longevity of the car. But it's a full carbon-bodied sequential trans. It's got a shark fin. It looks nuts. There'll be pictures of everything up here. Nick, we're at 1 hour and 8 minutes. What else do we want to talk about? We can
forget drag racing. Basically, Matt Hagan won funny car. Cool. Tony Stewart didn't win top alcohol. Not cool. Done.
Perfect. And I'm going to save the Newcastle 500 for our Friday episode because I only got to watch race 1. I didn't get to watch race 2, so I'm going to watch that this week, and I will do a more in-depth review of that on Friday. That's going to do it for episode 42 of the Clutch Dump. Ladies and gents, whatever you're listening to this on, make sure you give us a follow. Please drop a rating and a review. It helps us so much to try and reach a greater audience. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit the notification bell, make sure to like and share this video, comment down below what you thought of this one. That's going to do it for episode 42. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.